Tony done. Ain't nothing to it but to do it, brother. Let's roll.
In a world where Carolina Panthers fans have an insatiable thirst for Panthers news and opinions, only one podcast roars ferociously. It's the C3 Panthers Podcast.
Welcome back, Panther fans. You're listening to another episode of the C3 BeatCheck, hosted by the C3 Panthers Podcast, where on Wednesday nights we put our ear to the beat and check out what's going on both around the marketplace of ideas for the Carolina Panthers and the opponent. This week we'll be hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers, and tonight we've got Mark Bergin from Bleav and Steelers podcast to come and help us preview this matchup tonight. We're going to look around at a couple of stories on the Panther websites of news and information that we all love and go to for that discussion, and kind of just talk about whatever's happened since yesterday, because we're here for you every day of the week, it feels like. And we had a fantastic show last night, Cody, on the longest running Panthers podcast. It's here Tuesday nights at 9. And last night, boy, we were excited and rocking and rolling.
Yeah, we are. And I feel like we've Panther fans and podcasters and just everyone alike, especially this team, we've cut a second win. We're playing December football, and it means something. We're actually playing for some stakes, for all the marbles. I'm loving it, man. I feel like, I haven't felt like this in a long time as a Panther fan. So I'm pumped. We're 1-6 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we really have a chance to kind of do some rewriting of history, kind of change our trajectory. And, I'm happy to pick a Steelers fan's brain tonight and, check in on this matchup and see what it might hold. And you already know, we're going to do it with the best damn Panther fans in all of YouTube. We already got something in the chat right now. Adam Sanders, These Ill Skills, Dr. Rosen, JD864, Michael Davis, Tim Estes, and Panther Pickle. The crew is all here, Tony. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. Let's check the beat on the C3 BeatCheck.
Guys, we're going to head over. We'll start with this actually, Mark Bergin is going to join us in about 12 minutes, around 8:30, to help preview this game. So until then, what we'll do is we'll kind of just peek around at the Panther websites of choice. So let's start with Cat Crave. A good friend of ours, Dean Jones, is running that. And today is the stories on the top of their list are Panthers avoid QB temptation in CBS mock. So a lot already mock draft season, and like you said, we are playing for something in December, which is crazy. And then I guess the one that stands out to me, let's see, this is how Luvu's superb season compares to the NFL's best, right? And Frankie Luvu has been. Oh, look at that!
Hey, that's us.
That's us right there on the seat. That's the C3 Panthers podcast right there. You can find us on Cat Crave, and look at that. That's the big show from last night. Carolina Panthers must protect the bank. I guess that's what they'll look. We're the beat at this point.
Yeah, man. We really are.
Let's see how this story starts out. Frankie Luvu's emergence as the beating heart on the defense is reflected in recent statistics accumulated by Carolina Panthers outside linebacker. Let's see what those statistics are. He's had 3 fumble recoveries and a block punt. Is that true?
Yeah.
No, that was last year. Function. Let's see. What is he doing?
Well, I think it means over his whole career as a Panther, just everything that he's been able to accomplish. I mean, look, it's not out of the realm of reality to say that he is easily one of our best players, defense or offense. I mean, the guy is a perfect outside linebacker. To be honest, and I know this is a lofty resemblance to Bear, but to me, he kind of, in his play style, he reminds me a little bit of Thomas Davis. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He's not necessarily the biggest guy in the world. But, dude, he will run around and he will smack you in the mouth. He's incredibly intelligent. He knows where he needs to be at the right time. And he's a leader. I mean, to me, this guy could be a staple of our defense for years to come. I'm loving Louvu, man.
The story reports this: undoubtedly enjoying the best season thus far of his young career. How does Louvu stand up against some of the highest regarded and promising linebackers of today? According to Pro Football Reference, Louvu compares favorably to Roquan Smith of the Baltimore Ravens, who is widely regarded as the best second-level defender in the business. He writes, this story is written by, I give credit to Ricky Raines. So thank you, Ricky Raines, for looking into this. In 11 games this season, Frankie Louvu has amassed 78 tackles. Ooh, that's a big number right there, because he's going to crest 100. 12 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception, which was returned for a touchdown. Roquan in 13 games, boy, has had 120 tackles. That's a lot of damn tackles. But he was doing everything in Chicago. 8
First
tackles
round pick.
loss, and 4.5 sacks, 3 picks. Man, Roquan Smith is a freaking beast, bro.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people wanted the Panthers to trade for him.
So let's hop over. We'll hop over to Cat Scratch or Reader next. Another great Panthers website. Let me see. I should have these better queued up for you. See what they got going on. Nuanced look at the playoff picture. Hey, man, the Bucks are falling apart, aren't they, Cody?
They really are. They're falling apart. Tom Brady is also not playing well, which I said earlier this year. That whole team, they're not at full strength, and they don't scare me, man. I know everybody thought Tampa was supposed to be the big bad Bucks in the division this year, but nah, they're a shell of themselves.
One of the things I thought, man, the line, I thought we were favorites against the Steelers. It says we opened up as dogs, and one of the stories, one story on their website right now, hitting his 5 key stats from the win over the Seahawks, Cody. I mean, over the Seahawks. I wonder what do you think they were before we get into them. I haven't looked at this story. So it's going to be turnovers, right? Like the turnover battle, because we get like 2 picks and they lead to scores. It's going to be the rushing yards, right? Like as in 260, whatever, or 16 yards from scrimmage or whatever that is. What are you going to do? Look, they're waving at J.C. Horn. I bet you the pick, J.C. Horn stats, they're probably going to highlight him shutting down DK for the most part. What else do you think the other stat is? Something with Eddie Pinheiro, since he was the player of the week for something for special teams?
I mean, yeah, but I mean, is it just offense or defense, or is it both?
I don't know. This is what this says. 5 key stats from the win. So it could be. I'm thinking that it's going to be anything.
Probably yards per carry, like just the amount of yards our offensive line is and our running backs are being able to put out there on film. I mean, they're moving people around. We have 3 guys running the football at a high clip. That's on there. And by the way, Tony, I was watching that clip again of that J.C. Horn interception where he drops back into coverage. Dude, J.C. Horn's hips are as smooth as silk. I mean, the way that during the combine, when you hear about defensive backs that can flip their hip and get vertical in the other direction, like J.C. Horn is the epitome of that, dude. He's so talented. So good. So happy that he's on our team.
There's a cool tweet floating around by Justin Blackman, which I need to know. Is this the guy that fizzled out and had all the problems in Jacksonville? Because if it is, he is really making a resurgence as an analyst, which it can't be the same Blackman. Because I remember that dude being really dumb in Jacksonville. I hope I'm not insulting the guy, because if he is, he's not as dumb. He's like this. His name's Justin Blackman. He's got this. He was I don't know. He's an analyst for somebody right now. And what he was saying is that this dude covered a 7 route and a China route or something. Because if you saw that, like he came off of his route to get that interception. So he was defending 2 players at once, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So here are the 5 stats right now that they're 2 QB hits, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. So they highlight Frankie Louvu's game. All right. So Frankie Louvu is their first stat. 1 interception, 2 passes defended by the Panthers. Let's see. We only have 1 interception. I thought we had 2. I swear we had 2.
Yeah, I thought we
99
did too.
scrimmage yards. Let's see. Chuba Hubbard had 14 carries for 74 yards and a touchdown, while 20. So they're highlighting Chuba's stats.
Yeah, I told you it'd be something related to the Russian thing.
Terrace Marshall Jr. With that crazy catch. Wow, these are not the stats I would have thought. That 4-4 record for Wilkes so far. So interesting stuff there. And here, this is on. I'm going to pop over real quick to. Hold on, let me see if I can do this real. I got to stop doing just the tab. On the Panthers website right now. Key story right here that we talked a little bit about last night. We got some new news, and that is DJ Moore, full participant in practice. So that's important for our offense going into this game.
Yeah,
and
that's a sigh of relief.
Go check out Bradley Bozeman mic'd up. It's fun. It's a fun watch, and I saw both Nicky Bozeman and Bradley faved our short today, Cody, of you last night on the show saying numero uno priority, right? We made a great short on YouTube of that clip today. So you guys go back and check out the
Wait, tell me that first part again. Who liked it?
Both Nicky and Bradley Bozeman did.
Yeah, we out here, boy. Let's go.
Yeah, I know, man. So we're trying to delve a little bit into cutting up some of the long form show into those shorts. But don't forget, you can check out the C3 Panthers podcast 9:00 Tuesday nights live. Going in, we're in our 10th season, Cody. I was messaging Miles Hartfield trying to land us an interview with a player.
Yeah, same. Me too.
And I was thinking about it. If there's, we're approaching what? That would be 500 episodes, I think. 10 years, once a week at the minimum. And when we've already crested 500 because we do multiple shows a week now that we didn't do 8-9 years ago. But we've been rocking and rolling. So you guys make sure to smash the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe, and check us out. Next, we got Friday night, the Friday free for all, Saturday, the Saturday simulation, Madden simulation, which has been fun with CK. And don't forget the post game on Sunday nights. Cody, let's go ahead and bring in our guest, Mark Bergin of the Bleav in Steelers podcast. I am terrible at pronouncing people's names. Strangely, I hope I got it.
It is Bergin, but that's okay, fellas.
I totally knew it.
It's okay.
I'm from Winterville, North Carolina, dude.
Hey, you're wearing a Batman shirt, all as well, and it's not every day you get to go on the longest running Panthers podcast. The fact that you guys have been on for 10 years, in all seriousness, like Ike and I, we're in our 4th season now, but like I got to give kudos to both of you guys. That's dedication in all seriousness. But thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm excited to talk Steelers and Panthers tonight.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. And thanks for coming on the show. This show's been through many evolutions and iterations over 9 years, from me trying to figure out how to stream on the internet in 2013. And that's where it all started, is like, which is wild because it seemed so bizarre at the time. Like no one was really doing it. It almost seemed ridiculous, like to say you were an adult with kids and trying to make football videos, and you're like, people are like, oh man, you have a real job, dude. Why are you doing this? And then now people, it's like a part of people's daily job.
You're weird if you don't have a podcast.
Yeah, no doubt.
Fellas, can I ask you a quick question off the top? Do you know why it's called a podcast?
No, I have no. Wait, no. Let's see. No, I have no idea.
So the reason why is when Apple was starting this way back when you had not before the iPhone, you had actually iPods.
Yeah.
There's a broadcast for an iPod. And I remember the days you'd have to download the podcast to your computer, plug your iPod in, download it to your device, and then you could listen to it that way before you could even access internet on your iPod. But that's the reason why it's called a podcast, which I didn't know about until this year. But yeah, there you go.
I'm sure Apple is suing somebody trying to get royalties for every time we say podcast or whatever. And which is kind of also just while we're on this crazy rant, is that it's almost like an archaic form of consuming media now. Like I feel like we go to YouTube and some different ways is like the old school podcast is, I don't know. It's like the old hats listen to podcasts in some ways, like the adults. Now I guess you got to have a TikTok platform or something like that. But let's jump into the Panthers are, surprisingly playing for something in December, man. If you would have asked us this a month and a half ago, would have been hard to forecast us like being kind of in contention for maybe a playoff spot at this point. Actually, for winning the division is real potential as the Buccaneers are falling apart. So as the Pittsburgh Steelers come to Bank of America and our coach pleads for us to protect the bank or demands from his players to protect the bank, we are excited about this game, but we're also a little fearful when it comes to how many damn Steeler fans travel to the dang games. Good God. Mike Tomlin is facing potentially his first losing season ever. What are you expecting about this game? What's on your mind? What are you guys talking about when it comes to the Steelers in this matchup?
Well, the big question right off the top is the health status of Kenny Pickett, leaving last week's game against the Ravens with a concussion. So can he go? If he can go, he's got to be the starter. And had he not gotten hurt against the Ravens, it is of my opinion that the Steelers would have won that game. So if Pickett can't go, the question then turns to, who do you start? Do you go with Mitch Trubisky, who has not looked great in his 4 starts and throw 3 interceptions in relief of Pickett? Do you go with Mason Rudolph, who you only have under contract for the remainder of this season? Do you give him a whirl? I'm of the proponent, if Pickett can't go, see what Rudolph can do, because we all know what Mitch Trubisky is at this point in his career with 54 career starts, 30 and 24 as a starter. At this point in his career, he's a backup. And so I see, can Mason Rudolph, do you want to retain him beyond this season? And then if he does play well, maybe you drive up his price to whichever team signs him in the offseason. They got to fork over a little bit more coin. I would be inclined to start Rudolph also because, God forbid there's an injury. I'm looking to 2023 and beyond. You keep Trubisky healthy. He's under contract in 2023. If there is an injury, I'd rather that injury go to Rudolph than Trubisky. So that's kind of my logic. I'm operating under the assumption that at 5-8, the Steelers are out of the playoffs, at least in the AFC. If you want to trade divisions, I'm open to having that conversation with both of you fellas, because at 5-8, the Panthers are still very much alive in the playoff hunt in the NFC South.
You know, something that you just mentioned too is we're 0-3 against your division. We've lost to the Ravens. We lost the season opener to the Browns and the Bengals, too, especially after the Bengals game. That was when Panther fans were at our lowest, because that was just a trubbing. But one of the things that the Panthers have done really well in recent weeks is run the football. We have Deontay Foreman, Raheem Blackshear, and Chuba Hubbard. They're really doing well. And me and Tony have been saying this is one of the best offensive lines that the Panthers have ever had. They are that good right now. How would you say the Steelers' run defense has been this year? And what do you expect them to look like against this resurgent rush defense or rush offense of the Panthers?
Yeah, it's been a totally different identity under Steve Wilks. I don't need to tell both of you, but that's been the huge difference between Wilks and Matt Rule. So with the Panthers, I got 2 stats for you. Leading the NFL in rushes between the tackles with 199 and second in rushing yards between the tackles since week 7. It's been a night and day difference between Matt Rule being the head honcho and then also trading away Christian McCaffrey over to the 49ers. Yeah. So there's that. And so you have a completely different identity. And when after the last win, they asked Sam Darnold after the game, what's the difference between Wilks and Matt Rule? And he says, running the ball. Listen, this is coming from your quarterback. And he's saying that. The Steelers' run defense has been better than it was a year ago. The Steelers had a strange dichotomy last season where they ranked number 1 in the NFL in sacks, but they were also dead last in rushing yards allowed. But you saw some of the struggles that they have up front on display last week against the Ravens. When the Ravens, Huntley went down the backup and the Ravens put in their 3rd string quarterback making his NFL debut. And the Steelers putting 8 men in the box and they still couldn't stop it. 5 yards per carry for the Ravens. It wasn't just J.K. Dobbins coming back for Baltimore. It was also Ronnie Stanley, the star tackle on the offensive line, to where they controlled things up front. Teams have demonstrated they can do that against the Steelers defense. That's a little bit bend but don't break, because you look at the scoreboard and you say, okay, yeah, you're allowing 5 yards per carry, but you're only allowing 16 points per game, and you're only giving up, say, field goals on the back end. So that to me is where it is an Achilles heel of the Steelers defense, but they have been better. They have improved compared to a season ago.
Tony, I think you're muted if you're talking.
Yep, I am. Cody, this is just a little joke for you before we move on. As we've been arguing over Brian Burns being paid like a top defensive end in this league, if Mason Rudolph starts this game, Cody, do we have to pay Brian Burns more if he rips his head off and hits him with a helmet across his head and has some sort of fight? Because then I think he's entered the stratosphere of Myles Garrett type money.
Yeah, you don't even have to ask me that.
Mason Rudolph, head coming off. No. All right,
well,
Mark.
I think you bring up a good point, though, too, if I could interject.
Yeah,
when you
please.
think of Mason Rudolph, that's the first thing that you think of him as a Steelers quarterback. Not exactly a great sign where an on-field fight is the first thing that you think about instead of something he's accomplished on the field. Well, listen.
We don't know if he said, I know. Yeah. We don't know, but he trusts Myles Garrett right now.
I'm going to say this. If you want to relitigate that, Garrett's accusation came out a full week after that brawl happened. Yeah. So if you want to relitigate that, and the league never found any evidence, and there's players on the field on both sides saying we didn't hear that, I'll leave that. We don't need to relitigate
you're right.
that. But if you want to uncover rocks, that's what happened.
You're right. That's the first thought when you think about him, and I'm sure he's looking for an opportunity to kind of put on some good tape. And certainly Mitch Trubisky has not put on any good tape. I can't imagine. He was freaking terrible. If he just makes one play last week, you guys win that game somehow, or at least could win that game. The Steelers gave up a lot of yards late in that game on the ground. Was last week, Mark, the loss to the Ravens, was it because of Mitch Trubisky's turnovers, or was it because of a team kind of just all total team loss because that defense crumpled under the run late in the game?
It was few things. Trubisky's 3 interceptions, all 3 of them came in Ravens territory. The Steelers went 2 of 4 in the red zone. You leave points on the board, and it's going to cost you against good teams. Calais Campbell also blocked a field goal. So you're talking about the possibility of, if you're getting field goals, 12 more points on the board, and it was a 2-point difference. That was the difference between winning and losing. It wasn't the interceptions. Not all interceptions are created equal. It was where they came on the field in the situation where when you're throwing them in Ravens territory, you're preventing your team from putting up much needed points for an offense that struggled when points are a premium. Another thing I do not understand, you're coming off a week where George Pickens had 1 catch on 2 targets. He has 3 catches on 3 targets for 78 yards. Why did the Steelers not go back to Pickens again and prove that the Ravens could stop him? When I look across the division and I see Jamar Chase, and I'm not saying George Pickens is Jamar Chase, don't get confused here. But when I see Jamar Chase has 10 catches on 15 targets this past week, it's like, can the Steelers not steal that same recipe in getting who, in my opinion, is their most effective player and their most dynamic playmaker on the offensive side of the football?
Well, you just talked about your playmaker, Pickens, on the offensive side of the football. Before you came on, me and Tony were talking about our burgeoning star on the defensive side of the football. Someone I expect to be lined up right across from Pickens, and that's J.C. Horn. And right now, PFF has him as the lowest passer rating allowed at 35.8. There's been a lot of litigating as to who the Panthers should have picked that draft. Should it have been Justin Fields? Should it have been J.C. Horn? But J.C. Horn is having a tremendous year for us this year. and he has pretty much locked up every receiver that he's had to go up against. I know you talked about your quarterbacks and that being kind of an area of concern, but do you have the exterior weapons to be able to get open on the outside so whoever your quarterback is actually has someone to pass the ball to?
Well, the Steelers have the weapons, but the sum doesn't equal its parts. A season ago, Najee Harris and Deontay Johnson were both Pro Bowl alternate players because the Bengals were in the Super Bowl. So both of them played in the Pro Bowl a season ago. Their production hasn't been there this season. Now, Najee has been better since the bye week. I'll concede that. But Deontay Johnson still does not have a touchdown in the 2022 season, one of many failures by the Steelers offense this season. Pat Freiermuth's a very good second-year player at the tight end position. He's battled with concussions a little bit. He's a nice player. You have enough confidence in George Pickens to say, hey, we can trade Chase Claypool to Chicago, get a second-round pick, and get that rookie contract for 4 seasons, because one position the Steelers do not have issues drafting and developing is at wide receiver. So they have the parts, but it's like, can you scheme it up and can you get them the football? And that's where a lot of fans, myself included, are calling for Matt Canada's job as the offensive coordinator, because when points are a premium and you're averaging less than 20, 21 points per game, whatever the league average is right now heading into week 15, it's just not good enough. And this past week, when you give up only 16 points to the Ravens, this isn't, the old school football where, 10-7 games you would see from a decade plus ago. The league has changed. It favors offensive football and it favors scoring, and the Steelers have not been able to do that. So I'll say this. The Panthers look good because I look forward to the day with J.C. Horn where he pays homage to his daddy. And when he gets a pick six, takes the phone into the end zone.
Gets the phone out.
And I'll say this too. Ike Ekwonu at the left tackle position out of NC State.
Yeah.
He's a kid in our backyard. I live in Raleigh. And so they were calling him the king of the pancake block. And they were giving him bottles of maple syrup for all the pancakes he was having at the collegiate level. If I'm a running back or quarterback young in this league, and I know I've got a bodyguard for the next decade plus and someone who can pave the way and who is nasty up front, and or if I'm a quarterback, I know my blind side is protected. This is someone I get really, really excited about. And I'm telling you this, you guys are the longest running Panthers podcast. It is your responsibility to get Ike Ekwonu a sponsorship, whether it's with IHOP, Denny's, if you want to go Cracker Barrel. In all honesty, he's that good up front, and he's only going to get better and better and better with more experience.
Got to be IHOP.
Yeah, it has to be.
International House of Pancakes.
Yeah.
Ekwonu House of Pancakes.
Dude, he's incredible.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
and the coolest thing, Mark, he grew up a Panthers fan. There's videos and pictures of him in the stadium with his mom and dad wearing Panthers jerseys. So it's been a nice story for us. We love us some Kevin Ekwonu. Going back to this matchup, Mark, for a long time, one of my favorite coaches in the NFL has been Mike Tomlin for the consistency that he has shown year after year, and he's never had a losing season. And to me, a lot of that speaks for itself. However, I have been hearing that there are many Steelers fans who are so unhappy with Tomlin that they want to see him lose his job after this year. Where do you stand on this matter? And what is the real truth behind this season and Mike Tomlin?
Sure. So about a year ago on our show, on the Bleav in Steelers show, we talked to a writer by the name of John McClain. He's covered the NFL for almost 5 decades.
Texans guy. Covered the Texans for Houston Chronicle.
Sir.
Yep.
And
he's also a fantastic interview.
Oh, when you've been around that long, you have stories for days.
Yeah.
But he told us, he said, if the Steelers and Mike Tomlin ever decided to part ways, Mike Tomlin would have a job with one of the other 31 teams by sundown on the same day. Tells me all I need to know about Mike Tomlin and his track record of success. Consider this. The Steelers haven't had a losing season since 2003. Consider that their highest draft pick was Devin Bush in 2019 with the 10th overall pick, a pick they traded up for. So they haven't bottomed out to where, if you floor a truck, eventually it's going to run out of gas. If you go to your cupboard and you go to your refrigerator and you continually take food from it and you don't ever replenish it, it's going to go bare at some point. And that's what's happened with the Steelers. There was a game, I want to say 2 years back, Mike Tomlin's on the field before the game talking with Chase Young, the star defensive end out of Ohio State, young player in the league, stud off the edge. And he's just laughing at him. Mike Tomlin, and I'm paraphrasing here, he goes, "We never draft high enough to get guys that look like you." Well, that's reflective of what's going on with the Steelers, to where there's a lot of holes. You have a rookie quarterback. You have a new defensive coordinator. You have a new general manager. Your Hall of Fame quarterback just retired. So we knew this season was going to be tough because there is some talent on both sides of the ball. Deontay Johnson's like the elder statesman. He's 26 years old.
Yeah.
So you knew this was going to be a bit of a transition this year. And I give him the benefit of the doubt. I know he hasn't had the playoff success in recent seasons, but think about how many other franchises would love to be in the Steelers' shoes and their track record of success, to where, at this point, you want to get a better draft pick, but at the same time, you want to make sure you foster a winning culture. And that's really what the Steelers are grappling with this season in what will likely be Mike Tomlin's first losing season.
Cody, this conversation of the draft pick and the culture, Jesus. Well, first of all, the Steelers can never have to have that conversation. They can be the worst team in the league and still have the culture. I mean, Jesus, like, they've only been ridiculously successful. And shame on any Steelers fan who that's what they get. They're spoiled ass brats. No offense. I'm not trying to be mean, but like, it's kind of like when you hear New England Patriot fans talking. It's just like, gosh, man, we were following Cam when he went there, and it was just like, gosh, you are some spoiled mugs, man. We would love to have that. When it comes to, so that's bizarre when it comes to Tomlin that people would even think that.
Yeah.
But here, to follow up on that, one of the things we're going to be looking for a new head coach. We fired our head coach this past year. Now, while Steve Wilkes is making a real claim to that position and that job right now, we have been kind of forecasting the coaching position for 2 years now in this place. Is not only did we debate endlessly on this show before we hired Matt Rule, after a year or two, we were like, we saw it. At least I was done with him after last season. I'm usually pretty patient on these things. But the central debate we have had is whether or not you should have the benefits and the drawbacks of having a defensive coach versus an offensive coach. And really, we've had only defensive coaches really in the history of our success as a team. And the difficulty for a defensive coach, or at least in our mind, has been why the draw of an offensive mind is that when they do have success, the coordinators ultimately leave. And when they have a good offensive coordinator and he leaves for another job, it's sometimes hard to keep that success rolling because you need to have somebody good to step in that role. We've looked around the league and really tried to have identified defensive coaches, one of them being a former Panther coach in Sean McDermott, that have been able to weather this storm and are trying to figure out if that's a risk that we're willing to take. Belichick, but you got to make Tomlin in there as like a key example. But you're talking about the offense right now. Can you maybe give us a little perspective on kind of how Tomlin is navigating a offense that's struggling?
Yeah, look, I'll just be frank with both of you. I will be surprised if Matt Canada retains his job in 2023. Now, this was supposed to be the year when Ben Roethlisberger retired, and you play 18 seasons in the league. Father Time's going to catch up with you. He's headed for Canton, no doubt. But he couldn't move around like he could earlier in his career, in the last few years of his career. And this was supposed to be the year, whether it was Trubisky back there or Pickett, that you could open up the playbook. You could be more exotic. You could move the quarterback around. You could do RPOs. You could bootleg the quarterback. You could run read option. And again, I mean, I would argue that the offense has been even worse. It's for a variety of reasons. Everyone's got to look at accountability, but at the same time, it's just like, I don't know what the argument would even be to say, Matt Canada, you're going to come back next year, because Kenny Pickett has made strides, but it's just these game plans don't make sense, and the predictability of the offense is evident. If it's evident for me, who's someone who watches the games, I can't even imagine what it's like for an opposing team's defensive coordinator, where they know what's coming before it happens. you have to have counters and ability to adapt and be able to maximize and utilize the talent that you do have on your roster. And this is something that the Steelers have struggled with the offensive coordinator. I mean, if I'm being honest, dating back to when Bruce Arians used to be the offense coordinator, you go from him to Todd Haley to Randy Fichtner, then Matt Canada, who was the quarterback's coach under Fichtner when the Steelers finished dead last in the league in rushing a few years back. And it came down from Art Rooney, the owner, saying, hey, that's never going to happen again. And that's why the Steelers draft Najee Harris in the first round out of Alabama. Well, Najee's a nice player, and I think he's struggling with injuries this season and behind an offensive line that, frankly, isn't that strong. And I know that you had, David DeCastro came and went. It was towards the end of his career. Marquise Pouncey retired. The Steelers haven't had an offensive lineman drafted in the first or second round of the draft since 2012 when they drafted David DeCastro. He was a multi-time Pro Bowler at the guard position.
Does this sound like?
This sounds like us.
This debate over
a lot of similarities.
Culture,
a lot of similarities.
The debate over culture and draft pick and an offensive line that you haven't invested in a decade and real, collateral or capital, should I say. I wanted to ask about this defense, though, real quick, is that the Carolina Panthers, I Bleav, are 1-6 against the Pittsburgh Steelers historically. I don't know if seems like we would have played them more, but I know we play every preseason, so I'm sure that clearly that's not counting that stat. But, one of the last times, I guess the last time we played the Steelers maybe was the big blowout on Thursday night where TJ Watt destroyed Cam Newton's shoulder and ended really his time in Carolina. And what was a hot run under Norv Turner. And the last time we were good, and we started, I think, 5-1 or 5-2 or something like that. But the Panthers, every time we've played the Steelers, have struggled with the 3-4 defense historically. Now, we do have our best offensive line, arguably, in almost team history, some people believe at this point. But that 3-4 defense has given us fits for decades, it feels like. How is that defense? Is it the same defense that has, frustrated us in the past?
No, the Steelers are running a lot more cover 2 this season. I personally think that's because other than Minkah Fitzpatrick, that they don't have the personnel to match up with opposing teams' receiving course. That's just my opinion. But remember, Mike Tomlin, before he came over and was the Steelers coach, he used to be the defensive backs coach for the Tampa Bay Bucks. And then he served for one season as the defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. So this truly is a Mike Tomlin defense, but you're seeing them run a lot more cover 2 than they have in seasons past. And it is different. While they still do run 3-4, it's a different defense that you saw under, say, many years ago when Dick LeBeau was the defense coordinator, or Keith Butler, who retired after the 2021 season. So there are some similarities, there are some wrinkles, but it is different than that traditional 3-4 Steelers defense that you've seen, for the last 10, 15, 20 years or so.
I wanted to go back to the quarterback position for a minute and Kenny Pickett. And we know he's dealing with the concussions right now. But long term, I know it's his season and that can get kind of murky no matter what kind of talent you are. We've been arguing on this podcast about Trevor Lawrence. I'm a big Clemson fan. And they love to bust my balls and tell me how underwhelming he's been. But, it really does. It takes a whole team, and it takes a coaching staff that's going to spend time developing your quarterback. Do you Bleav that you have a guy worth developing long-term in Kenny Pickett, or do you think that the Steelers are going to be going back to the quarterback sometime in the near future?
It's not how the Rooneys operate traditionally. Now, since the lockout in 2011, when there's the rookie salary cap, this is why you saw the Cardinals did this with Kyler Murray. I know that back in the day, Washington did it with RG3 and Kirk Cousins. But when you're the quarterback, you're the CEO, you're the face of the franchise. And if the Steelers were to say, hey, we really like one of these young studs coming out in the 2023 draft, whether it's, CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, whoever it ends up being, you're sending mixed messages. Now, remember, Kenny Pickett played his college ball at Pitt, so he's accustomed to playing at what used to be Heinz Field is now Acrisure Stadium. But I'll give you a quick history lesson here. Back in 1983, the Steelers passed on another Pitt quarterback by the name of Dan Marino. And they instead drafted a defensive lineman who his name slips me, but Senor Sack was his nickname. And long story short, he didn't live up to that nickname in the NFL. And so I don't think the Rooney family ever forgot that. When Pickett was available at number 20 in this past year's draft, there was no way they were going to pass up on him. Now, I like the moxie, what I've seen. He said all the right things in the media sessions, and I've seen progressions that might not necessarily show up on a stat sheet. And let me walk you through what I'm talking about. Entering last week's game, he had 4 consecutive games where he hadn't thrown an interception. That was an issue early on when he came in to relieve Mitch Trubisky. So he was learning how to protect the football and when to take shots and when to put his team in position to say, hey, now I can take a risk. This is when I need to be more risk averse. I go to the Falcons game where late game situation coming out of a 2-minute warning finds Deontay Johnson that they trust him to get a first down. Falcons take a timeout. Then they have 2. They bottle up Najee Harris, and it's a 3rd and 5 play. They decide to run Pickett on a bootleg. He smartly decides he doesn't get the first down, but he decides to slide to keep the clock moving, number 1. He avoids injury because he's running on the left side of the field with his right shoulder exposed. He avoids injury. He doesn't fumble, and the clock is moving to where the Falcons then have to drive down the full length of the field to try to get a field goal to tie up the game with 40 seconds left down at their own 1-yard line after the punt. Down distance situation and understanding and playing the chess match of when you look at the box score of that game, you say, oh, less than 200 yards passing and a touchdown, not that impressive. It's not what dictated the game dictated, right? And so it's that situational awareness to me where you're already seeing some of that progression, even as a rookie. He's 24 years old. He has 4 years experience starting at Pitt, but there's more to the quarterbacking position than the flashy throws and the rocket arm and running around and making magic and wizardry happen. There's things that go into the quarterbacking position that aren't flashy. They won't make headlines, but it's the difference between winning and losing. And I'm starting to see that even as a rookie from Kenny Pickett, and that excites me.
Yeah, he was in consideration for us as well because Matt Rule had recruited him when he was still the coach at Temple. There were rumors that David Tepper, our owner, really liked him, but ultimately we didn't end up going take it. But we do have Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold has been much maligned. He's gotten a lot of hate over last year. And the fact that we passed on other QB options for Sam Darnold. My question to you is kind of specific. Do you think that there has been enough film on Sam Darnold this year for the Steelers to be able to key in on some of his tendencies to kind of slow down the things that have been making him successful this year?
That's a great question. And to answer your question, probably not. I mean, I know they're 2-0 with Darnold as the starter this year. And then I would say, okay, well, what did he do last year as the Panthers starter? Well, remember, Matt Rule's now no longer there.
Right.
So he's not going to be asked to do some of the same things he was asking to do under a different head coach. So to answer that question, probably not. But I mean, you could also go back to tape that he had when he was the quarterback of the Jets as well. So that's kind of what I would say with that. I mean, I don't need to tell both of you fellas, the Panthers quarterbacking situation. On the surface, it's like, oh, okay, let's take a flyer on Baker Mayfield, but it's, drafting Matt Corral and PJ Walker and then the trade that you made for Mayfield. And it's just like all the picks to where you're pretty high up in terms of salary cap allocation to the quarterbacking position. But really, the Panthers have been trying to find the guy since Cam Newton left him. Yeah. So I don't need to tell you guys that, but
and I know a lot of us ran on Pickett. You mentioned history, and I don't know. This is one of these. Who knows if anybody really knows the answer to this, and maybe you've never even heard this part of it. Is that? But we've had connections between Carolina and the Rooney family in a way. Is that our former owner Jerry Richardson always was very good friends with them. He liked their kind of measured style and how important they were to the league. And Jerry Richardson modeled everything about the shield and this, which the irony is they kind of left in a little scandal at the end. But our new owner used to be a minority owner with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
Rumor has it that David Tepper may have been part of a group that was essentially interested in a coup d'etat to get Mike Tomlin out a long time ago. Have you heard anything about this that maybe, Cody, well, how long ago was it? Maybe about 6 years ago? Years ago?
It's been a few years now. There was a list of
It was like
minority
unnamed
owners.
minority owners
Yeah, but
interested,
they
were
were all
unhappy with
pretty.
Tomlin.
They were all the articles were fairly certain to mention David Tepper's name amongst that list. I don't know how they verified that, but it definitely made the rounds that David Tepper was not a fan of Tomlin.
Have you heard anything about that, Mark?
That's the first I've heard that.
Okay.
Now, I know that Tepper obviously has the ties with the Steelers. He's a 5% owner at one point, back in like 2009, 2010 range, probably, whatever the
Was he
math
not
is
that
on
long?
that.
I mean, I guess maybe he had to sell. I mean, I thought he didn't sell until he tried to buy the Panthers. Wasn't sure about that.
That's my understanding. I want to make sure I ask you fellas some questions, because I've got some questions as my own. I really have 3. If you want to go rapid fire, we could, but do you want Steve Wilks to be your head coach week 1, 2023?
I know I do. I really do. I've said this over the course of our podcast in the past few weeks. I don't know of another man who could have turned around this just depressing season. Not even this season, but the past few years, Panthers have been really down in a low place. And the fact that Steve Wilks has come in and gone 4-4, I mean, it's a testament to who he is. And he's been on this Panthers team when this franchise had its most success. We were going to the Super Bowl. We had good defenses. And I Bleav most people believe that Steve Wilks, when he was in Arizona, never really truly got a chance to be the head coach that he wanted to be with that organization. He's from Charlotte, went to West Charlotte, went to Appalachian State. Like, we just love the guy. I don't know if it's true. I'm hearing rumors that David Tepper still might want a young, offensive-minded guy. But if you take the temperature of the Panthers fan base, yeah, we're pretty much firmly behind Steve Wilks at this point in time. We feel like he's earned it. And that's how I feel.
Yeah, well, on top of that, as each week that this team improves, the harder the answer to say that you want somebody else realistically is for not only a fan, but at this point, as you're starting to, if you are an owner like Tepper or just any business leader, is like, who's a name that is more not exciting, but I guess more qualified at this point. It's like it would really take a big name to say, you know what, you've done a great job running our business for the last year. Imagine if you were like your manager of a company, or whatever, you're the president of a company quit and you're promoted as a VP or as an interim president, and you do a great job with the company, and man, everybody's like, man, we're really surprised about how well you did. And then you go, you know what, though, we're going to hire this guy over you. That name would have to be, I've been trying to think of who that name could be if it was and who that would. And I think Harbaugh is the only one that would have enough credence at this point.
Frank
I just don't
Reich
think
is
you
the
could
name I'm
get
hearing
like
a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if Sean Payton would have any interest either.
Yeah, we can't get that. We wouldn't be able to get that because the Saints would never trade him to us. The other thing too about this is Wilks is from Charlotte, right? Is that he was part of the coaching staff in 2013, 2014, 2015. And then here's the other thing is that at each week that he does better, not only is it what the name would have to be, is that Steve Wilks is part of the lawsuit against the NFL that was started by Brian Flores. And isn't Flores with the Steelers now?
Yeah, he's an assistant coach and a linebackers coach. Yes, sir.
So he's part of essentially this class action lawsuit because of what happened to him with the Cardinals and this kind of systemic issue that's been going. So imagine the the risk you take is the Panthers to be involved with saying, sorry, no go Wilkes. Right. So I think he's earned it. And I think there's a lot of factors right now that are making it difficult to say we're going to go a different direction.
Well, I look at Shaq Thompson's comments too, to where what's the temperature of the locker room? A respected veteran saying he wants Wilkes around for a while. Listen to what the players say. Then the question is, well, how much turnover is there going to be with the current roster where it hasn't been up to snuff? But you stand to benefit from what's been the worst division in football this season. So it's, that's kind of where you're at. I have two other quick questions for both of you guys. Quarterback in 2023, if I gave you the keys to the Cadillac, who's under center for the Panthers week one and then really beyond? Because maybe you re-sign Darnold and you bring along a rookie. That's what I would do, but have at it.
Tony has already slumped back in his chair because I'm on team Matt Corral, baby. Listen, I like this guy coming out of Ole Miss. I think that he's very underrated in terms of his skill set. I think he has a big-time arm. I think he's mobile. He has to overcome questions about his injuries, which I understand. He had an injury his final year in college at the end. He had a Liz Frank in preseason this year. Mm-hmm. So people have some concerns. I understand. And, up until a few weeks ago, we were picking in like the top 5 of the draft. So Panther fans have been looking like we've been looking at quarterback prospects coming to the draft, wondering who we're going to pick. A lot of Panther fans seem to think that we would still pick one this year, even if we do go on a run here. Mm-hmm. I really like Matt Corral. I'm hoping that he gets a shot to prove that he is the guy. I know you can't necessarily give him the thing, but I really like Matt Corral. I like his energy. I like the underdog mentality and talent. So, yeah, I might be an underdog in this scenario, but I'm pulling for Matt Corral.
You said I got the keys. Is it realistic or pipe dream?
What you would do. We give you. You're in charge. What would you do?
I would, if I was David Tepper, I'd pull out my $18 billion checkbook and I'd go get Lamar Jackson. And I would say, here's $300 million guaranteed. Sit out this year if you got to. No, I think this is that right now. It just depends, I guess, where you're going to fall in the draft.
That's true. That's true.
If you, even if despite whether or not we pick a quarterback, we're probably out of the range. We're probably falling out of the range. We're going to get the guy that is probably the most polished from day one. That I guess would be Bryce Young. That could literally start. I think whoever you pick, whether it even if it's like Levis or your pick of the litter, except for Bryce Young, you don't want to just rush them in. Like you don't want to force them to start from day one. So I think you're thinking some sort of veteran presence, at least to be on the roster. So maybe they could beat them out in training camp, or they would go in halfway through the season, or an injury would come up, like Kenny Pickett, like kind of the Kenny Pickett thing. They didn't want to start basically what you guys did with Pickett in a sense. Yeah. No matter if you pick the guy in the second or the first, I think that's probably the deal is that I guess you might end up having to give Sam Darnold a 1-year deal, which kind of stinks. So I'm going to tell you the guy, this is what I would do.
Okay.
Cody Lashley's going to hate this, but I go get Gardner Minshew to be that dude. Minshew magic. Yeah. Gardner Minshew, former Eastbell, barely played for ECU for like 4 games. I'm in Greenville, North Carolina, bro. So I'm like right down the road from you.
Oh yeah, Cody is disgusted right now. There's a twinkle in his eye right now.
He just
smoke coming out of his ears.
He hates Gardner Minshew because Gardner Minshew had more success in the same amount of time on the Jacksonville Jaguars than Trevor Lawrence did.
All right. I got one more. So there were reports earlier this year, Brian Burns, that the Panthers were offered 2 first-round draft picks for him. Would you have made that deal if you were David Tepper?
I would not have. I think that we made the right decision. We were arguing about Brian Burns recently on the show and about having to, now that you didn't trade him, you have to make him one of, if not the highest paid edge rusher in the NFL, because that's how things go now. And Brian Burns, he has gotten better every single year. And there's always been certain gripes and nitpicks on Brian Burns. He doesn't quite finish, he doesn't quite wrap up, he doesn't take over games like Von Miller, such and such. And to me, it's like a talent like Brian Burns, that's 24 years old, continues to get better and better. You don't just come across those types of guys, and you already need a defensive end on the other side of Brian Burns. And now you're gonna go get rid of your only defensive line Pro Bowler. It really made no sense. And he's the type of player that he gets better every single year. And you just imagine that if you added some more pass rush help, like a nasty tandem between him and someone else. Last year we had that with Hassan Reddick. Brian Burns and Hassan Reddick were just going off and doing crazy numbers. But this year he's already got 10 sacks. So I really do think Brian Burns is one of those players that the Panthers are going to build around, especially on defense for the foreseeable future. So the Rams also weren't giving up a pick this year. It would have been next year's first round pick. So it wasn't even like an immediate payoff trade. I think the Panthers made the right decision, especially now that we're looking to actually contend for the division. Yeah, I mean, you need Brian Burns right now. So I'm happy that they didn't deal him away.
The mistake was not trading Brian Burns. The mistake was not extending Brian Burns before this season, where we didn't have to pay, that's just what I continue to say is, look, is you can't just give a coach next year nothing to work with. And without Brian Burns, they're all going to be rookies. They're all going to be unproven, or you're just going to go get some free agent. We should have just extended them earlier. My back question, and just kind of round out this show, is thank you for being so generous with your time.
Of course.
Is who wins this game? And if it's the Steelers, how do they do it?
All right. So if Kenny Pickett does not go, right now we're recording on Wednesday. It's unclear. I don't think Kenny Pickett will play. I could be wrong about that. If he does not play, I think that the Panthers just have more to play for right now. And I'd take the Panthers to win 23-17. If Pickett goes, you can pretty much just flip that score and say Steelers will win. So I think a lot is contingent upon that. Probably giving Pickett more of the benefit of the doubt, but I do think that this Steelers offense operates with a little bit more juice with the rookie quarterback under center. But if Pickett does not go, and I don't expect him to, again, we'll see how he progresses through concussion protocol. I've got the Panthers winning 23-17 on Sunday.
Okay. Do you think Mason Rudolph? So it would be. I read a report that it would be Mason Rudolph, or that Mason Rudolph would probably be the guy. I know we kind of touched on this, but do you have any faith of Rudolph being, it's like, because look, we've been there before. We've been depending on PJ. We've depended on PJ Walker, and PJ Walker has shown up for us in some big moments. Like, do you think there's any chance that Mason Rudolph, who does have experience, could possibly make this happen?
He has a winning record as a starter. Rudolph gets a bad rap. Now, what Steelers fans think about a lot too is last season when Rudolph was filling in for Roethlisberger, who was dealing with COVID for a game. They threw Rudolph, he threw 50 passes in one game, not a recipe for any backup to have success filling in, but he can come in for a game or two and manage the game. You do an adequate job. Look, not every guy is a truck. Quarterbacks are trucks or trailers. You can either haul, and it doesn't really matter what you have around him. He's able to carry the load, or you need some help around him. And so you know what Mason Rudolph is. He's definitely a trailer and not a truck, but he gets a bad rap a lot of times just around the league, whether it's due to the brawl or he's just kind of, we'll see what happens. I think he's a backup, though. He was never going to be Ben Roethlisberger's heir. Let's not sugarcoat that. But could he be capable of playing serviceable football and the Steelers win? Sure, why not? That could definitely happen. I will say this, though, too. Bring this back to the Panthers in the NFC South. This is a Panthers podcast. We live in a world where all four teams in the NFC South could finish 6-11 and we'll have absolute chaos. And I hope we'll live to see it.
Oh, that would be crazy. There's
Uh,
no way Kenny Pickett plays this week after what's happened with Devontae Parker and the Patriots. Everybody's got to be super cautious in a season where the NFL, just 4 years after taking the high road and acting like and being overly careful 4 or 5 years ago, what it
Yeah.
is, maybe not overly careful, have had 2 high-profile incidents with Tua Tagovailoa, now Devontae Parker, of mishandling players and concussions, and those teams and the NFL are under it. All right, Mark, tell them, man, you've been a fantastic guest. You've given us so much insight. I hope I hope Najee Harris gets 61 yards rushing, and also Deontay Foreman gets 61 yards rushing. That will pay off on my prize picks. They sponsor our Tuesday night show. That's just me talking about my bet from last night. And thanks for coming on the show. Can you tell our listeners how they can find your work?
Yes, sir. You can look us up on YouTube. That's probably the easiest way. You can just search my name, Mark Bergin Steelers. You can also search Ike Taylor Steelers, and our show will inevitably pop up. We're the Bleav in Steelers show. We're out twice a week during the season, recapping games, previewing the week ahead. And my co-host, Ike Taylor, he played for the team for 12 years. We have a lot of fun each week on our show. So look, I mean, this is our 4th season. I hope we can make it to 10 like you fellas. And
keep plugging, bro.
Yes.
That's all you got to do. Just keep talking.
Yes.
It's easy.
I've flapped my gums enough tonight, but fellas, thank you to both of you for having me on tonight. I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Awesome, man. We appreciate
thank
it,
you,
man.
Mark.
Oh, are you Hurricanes or Penguins?
Neither. And
Okay.
to confuse you even more, I grew up in the Chicago suburbs. But
So
listen,
he's a
we'll talk about that
Blackhawks
the
fan.
next time.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Have a good one.
Thanks, fellas.
Later, Mark.
Wow, fun stuff there. All right. We held him up. He's like, I gotta go. I gotta get the fuck out of here.
No, it was a great interview, though. Great
Yeah, it was
insights, and I
fantastic.
like when the guest has questions for us and wants to pick our brain a little bit too. That's fun. Do you really
Yeah,
believe that about Gardner Minshew? Or are you just trying to piss me off?
Well, I mean, like, yeah, maybe a little. Like, I mean, what do you mean? You probably should have somebody. I mean, it's like if you're not going to bring back Sam Darnold, you got to bring in somebody. If you are, I would think this. What are the options? The options are, like you said, to roll with Matt Corral, but I think you just have to have somebody on the roster that's played some games before,
Oh,
right? I could
body.
just, yeah. Well, no, like a Darnold, in a sense,
Right.
a Trubisky. Is that like you can't just put all your eggs in a completely unknown basket, particularly coming off an injury, even if you really think he's going to win it.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, I just think that would be irresponsible to be like, oh, we're going to rock with Corral and PJ. Like, I mean, that would just be like, and it might turn out to be Matt Corral starting in week 1, but I just feel like it would be an unnecessary risk.
Yeah.
Now, what else? If you go and draft a guy in the top 10, what are you going to do? I mean, is it truly going to be a competition between him and Corral? Like, that would also be insane. In fact, I was mentioning this with Monty from the 4-Man Rush today.
Yeah.
He was talking about how Corral fans potentially are scared.
He's talking about me, by the way.
Right. That's
so
fine.
Stupid.
That's fine. But like, no, I don't even think that's a fair, like, a realistic criticism, because if you bring in a guy in the first round, like, there's no way in the world you're going to make it a true competition between him and Corral. Imagine like him. What would that say about your draft pick? That would be like the year that they draft the Redskins drafted RG3 and Kirk Cousins. And like, what if Kirk Cousins played better in camp and they were like, you know what?
Yeah, we're gonna
start you over the number 2 pick. Like, so I think that's unrealistic. So if that's an unrealistic competition, you have a decision to make if you draft that quarterback, that you're going to give him the keys no matter what, and he's going to be starting from day 1. Yeah. Or you bring in a third that could potentially say, we're going to try to, and then you let whatever the kid is try to beat him out. And if not, you say, oh, we're waiting for him to be ready. Like, so I just feel like now, and then the question is, who the fuck is the guy? Who's the veteran? Yeah. Is it Darnold? Is it Daniel Jones.
And don't you have to consider Darnold, especially? Let's say let's say we do go.
What's wrong with Minshew?
If we go, but I'm saying, let's say we go 3-1 or 4-0 with Corral the rest of this year. Like then you make the case. Well, all right. Last year
You
he
mean
started
Darnold?
3-0.
Darnold, you mean?
Darnold, yeah. Last year we
okay.
started with Darnold, but we're 3-0. This year, now we're 2-0. It's like once you give this guy an offensive line that he can play in rhythm in, he can do enough to win you some football games. And like you mentioned earlier, it depends on where you're picking in the draft. So if for some reason the Panthers slip to the late teens, early 20s of picking, well, then now if you want a quarterback so bad, you're probably talking about having to trade up to get that quarterback. So I think that Sam Darnold is a real answer for us.
Yeah,
Going
I think more so than Jimmy G, who is now coming off of 2 injuries. Don't like that name. I'm just trying to think of who a realistic names are. No Geno. Not interested in Geno Smith. No offense. Like, is he's going to come back to? I feel like he's coming back to earth. A lot of these teams that start off hot are kind
the
of
defenses figure them out.
Yeah, and they're regressing to me. Think about the Giants. They started out so strong. Is that I guess I would say, another guy I thought was a potential would be Carr if the Raiders were drafting high. And then I don't really love him. Like every time I start to think I think he's good, and then I watch him play.
Yeah, same. I mean, look, he makes some damn good throws, but he seems to be a chronic underachiever.
Yeah,
like every year that they hype him up, oh, this is going to be Derek Carr's year, and then it just never is. No,
I just don't even know who the real dude even could be, and that's why I actually think Minshew. It's like kind of like Darnold. I mean, and that's what makes me think Minshew is like a realistic option because I think his contract's up this year, so I think he'll be a free agent. He hasn't played at all, so he didn't get to hurt. Jalen Hurts didn't stink, and he stepped in and kind of played better than he should have. The Minshew that raised his price, so I think he'll be cheap. You know what I'm saying? And and I think also a guy too who the Panthers wouldn't feel almost like a better version of Trubisky without the money and the kind of the money attached to him, right? Because they I feel like they paid Trubisky a reasonable amount of money on that 2-year deal. So they're not going to just cut him. And then Trubisky has the pedigree of a first-round pick. So Minshew would be cheaper. He wouldn't have the clout of being a former first-round pick. He would be better than a Trubisky, but he would also be a guy you would not hesitate to start your Matt Corral or somebody else over.
And, weirdly enough, for that reason, that's probably why I wouldn't mind it in that scenario. Yeah, because it is, to me, as someone who really believes in Matt Corral, it's a shorter bridge to Matt Corral. And by the way, that was part of the reason why I was upset when the Panthers for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Because I felt like that muddied the waters to us seeing Matt Corral, as opposed to if we had just done, frankly, what we should have, which was ran with Sam Darnold as the starter and have Matt Corral as the backup and PJ number 3. I mean, we can do all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, but no, I see what you're saying.
A cool comment right here. Read this comment right here.
What blows, this is Michael's patron saying, shout out Michael, says, what blows my mind about Sam is why isn't he just trying to ball out? He has absolutely nothing to lose. I'd be that resume if I were him. And
I think he is trying to ball out, to be honest. I feel like he's barely had any reps. Like he's like, I'm doing the best I can. I haven't turned the ball over yet.
Yeah.
And each game he's trying to get more. I mean, God, if he would have just hit DJ and put some air under that pass or seen that pass in the beginning, it would have been like, we would have been like, oh shit, look at this. And he's running around out there. He hasn't been terrible. Sam Darnold needs a game though where he's good. He's just got to get over 200-yard pass. If he throws 225 against the Steelers, and has 1 touchdown, no interceptions, that would be balling out for him.
Yeah, it would. And like I said last night too, one of the biggest gripes around Sam Darnold is not taking care of the football. And the fact that that's what he's doing so well is that yeah, you have to take baby steps and realize the context that he's in. PJ Walker was a starter this year before him. Baker Mayfield was a starter before him, and he's in and he has played well inside the confines of the offense. And right now, I think that's the only thing that you can hope for. That he does that. And yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful that between him and DJ being healthy now, and Terrace Marshall Jr. coming into his own, yeah, I think Sam has a real shot to show himself to the NFL these final 4 weeks of the season, and potentially into the postseason. How about that?
I just want to, I got you on the line. Let's look at this real quick. Is just a couple of NFL headlines. This is interesting right here. NFL commissioner today, Roger Goodell. I don't have any expectations on potential Commanders sale. And this is what the story says, is that Commanders owner Dan Snyder early in November said that he was exploring selling the team. Goodell told reporters from the December league meeting, we will continue to work with him on that. But it looks like things may be going quiet on that front, which this is awesome. It's like I'm actually now team
On
Snyder.
his side, Tim Snyder.
Because like I just feel like he could like win. Like he's just like, and this is what you'd be like, you know what? I'm thinking about selling it, and then he just waits for the headlines to die and just never does.
Nah, I'm not gonna do it, dude.
Yeah, you know
It's
what?
like the
I
Wolf
told you I
on
was
Wall
just
Street.
thinking about it.
I'm not
Yeah.
leaving. I'm not fucking leaving. Yeah, dude, he's hilarious at this point. Most people are like, dude, do you know how much dirt he probably has on other NFL owners? Oh, you want me to sell my team, motherfucker? Well, now all of a sudden there's leaked emails about Raiders and shit apparently selling naked pictures. Or wasn't it Gruden who was like looking at naked pictures of
No. So what
cheerleaders?
this is, so what now though is that like I think the latest news about it has been that the NFL and the Commanders were used Gruden as him and that vice president, whoever, God, what's his name is going to come to me, and he's like the most hated Bruce something that he's like the most hated man by Commanders fans. Bruce Allen, I think is his name. Was their former GM, president, or something to this effect. But that they intentionally leaked the Gruden stuff to like divert attention from like their involvement in the shit. So it's just like,
wow,
really a true kind of a soap opera there. That's awesome. And I just picked over to what's this? This is just picked over to Reddit real quick, just see what's going on there in the Panthers Reddit. I have not read this at all, so let's see. So they're asking about the Luke Kuechly potentially joining, and Greg Oltz, and I think he's this was Michael Rimmer reported. He said would consider joining the Panthers coaching staff, and Kuechly said, I got to figure that out. I'm working with the South Charlotte Patriots right now. I need to see if I could get out of that contract. I have to see if that's a vertical move or a lateral move. And Greg Olson chimes in and says, if anyone targets my defensive coordinator, I'll file tampering charges. We have a Super Bowl to win next year. Look at you, Mr. Tepper. Greg Olson, that's pretty fun right there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Is that who beat their team?
Who?
Mel Mayock. He has helped coach a team in that same league, and they beat Luke Kuechly and Olson's team early in the season.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out Mel. That's cool. That's cool.
I think there
Um,
was
well, I wanted to
did,
share one thing with you too. I know you're not
okay.
big time into the draft and stuff, but this is making the round on Twitter. ESPN's Todd McShay says he believes Jalen Carter, you've heard me mention this name before, the defensive tackle Georgia, character issues that may end up affecting his draft stock. The Georgia defensive lineman is currently projected to be a top 5 pick. And whenever you hear news like this, you wonder, well, what are the off-field issues that they're talking about, or character issues? That what is that? And number, if you're the Panthers, you have so many fans that want to draft a quarterback, but would you miss up the opportunity to put a Jalen Carter next to a Derek Brown and on the same line as Brian Burns for the next foreseeable future? That might be something too good to pass up if that ends up happening to us. And depending on how far he falls, if the Panthers make a legitimate push, maybe he might be one of those players that falls to us.
Oh,
So
this will you'll like this is just to jump real quick back over to Cat Crave. Dean Jones
mhm.
put out the story about the Panthers avoiding the temptation of. He's just talking about a mock draft that CBS does. This is brilliant content. It's like, let's write an article about someone else's mock draft.
Yeah,
I
that's
love it.
perfect. Yeah.
It's like, hey, Panthers to take Miles Murphy, defensive
Yeah.
end from Clemson. Tell us about that, Cody.
Well, so if you're a Clemson fan, we're kind of divided for the first time in a long time because he opted out of the Orange Bowl.
Ooh.
Clemson's getting ready to play the Tennessee Volunteers in the Orange Bowl, and Dabo Swinney hasn't had many players that have opted for the draft instead of playing in their bowl game. But it did happen to him. I think Miles Murphy is a great player. I think he does everything well. Just being objective, I don't think he does anything at like a superstar level, but he is a well-rounded defensive end that I think would definitely make the Panthers better. I wouldn't be mad at it. And I find it funny that the Panthers had their first ever game in Death Valley at Clemson, and we still have yet to draft a Clemson player, man. Like, it drives me up a wall. I just think that's something that needs to change. Um, but you know what doesn't need to change? Michael Davis. Michael Davis never changed, brother. You are certified the man. With the $35 love bomb, says the mentality of Olsen, and that tweet is the definition of what it means to be a Panther. We have a very bright future. See y'all at the bank on Sunday. Shout out to Michael Davis, dude. You're the man.
I wonder if Olsen chiming in on this, even though it's just a kind of a joke and in jest and having fun, means that it's actually kind of a serious thing. And like what I mean by that is not like he's worried about losing Luke Kuechly, but
You're
like
right.
is that if this was something that Luke Kuechly, a story he truly wanted to kind of like go away
Yeah.
and not be associated with, and like if he walked out of there, Greg Olsen and him obviously are still in contact. Luke Kuechly's part of this broadcasting circular group that's helping with the Panthers. If Luke Kuechly walked out of that radio station and said, damn, I wish I would have been a little bit more aloof on that question or handled it a little bit different. I wish I wouldn't have teased fans like that. And he wanted this story to go away. I don't know if Greg Olsen would be joking about this.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. It's almost like the joke makes it more maybe it means that they're talking about it amongst themselves,
And not
or
in a
that there's
negative way. And not in a
yeah, yeah,
negative
yeah,
way.
yeah.
Because if Panther fans hype this up, we've been hyping this up. I mean, it's a story
Yeah.
on every website right now. We talked about it on the podcast last night. They know it's being talked about.
Yeah.
If Luke Kuechly wanted that conversation to go down more than up, I don't know if Olsen would have been jesting with him as much, especially his friend. The
Yeah.
last thing that I got to mention is this. And Eddie Pinheiro named NFC Special Teams Player of the Week.
Oh, shit.
Making all three. So he went 3 field goals, 3 extra points in this past game. And this kind of, I think CK was the one that raised this question last night, is what do you do as Pinheiro has been pretty good this year for the Panthers? Aside from maybe the first game he played, I think he missed a kick. He's maybe had one other kerfuffle or two, the most. But then you have the guy whose hamstring or groin exploded, Zane Gonzalez, who's probably is under contract. You almost probably have to bring. Do you bring back both? Oh, for camp. That sounds expensive,
so.
though.
I mean,
you can't. You know what I'm saying? That sounds expensive because you have to go pay Pinheiro a little bit.
I almost don't even mind it due to the bad luck that we've had at the position. From Joey Slide to Santoso. It's like we've had so many different kickers at the position. It's almost a good problem to have, having 2 kickers that can go and do the job. But I don't know. I mean, I know we were all really upset at Eddie Pinheiro after the Atlanta loss, and I was too. But I think that he's really done well. That article or him winning Player of the Week, that's a testament to that. I don't know. Right now, I don't really feel too strong one way or another. Who would you pick if you had to go one or the other for sure next season?
I have no idea.
I
have no idea. And the reason I say that is because I honestly haven't seen enough of Zane Gonzalez to have a tremendous amount of faith in him. And now that he's injured, like I know people were optimistic about him and he had been answering the call, right? Like, I mean, he had been doing enough to warrant him to be the Carolina Panthers kicker. But now you factor in the injury and it's not like all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, he's automatic. And, I was still kind of getting to know him. So I think the fact that you've been hurt and Pinheiro has been playing well, gosh, I guess we just have to look at the contract and see how much money, and you have to see how healthy Gonzalez is. Is this going to linger? I mean, you can't have another year where you go into camp and all of a sudden, like in week 1, he's hurt.
I mean, and I don't even know how long we have him under contract.
I think he was on a 2-year deal. I can look it up real quick.
I mean,
but we had just extended him, right?
Yeah, I want to say so. Yeah,
it was. I mean, I feel like we just, and everybody was like, "Oh, we just figured out our kicking situation." Like everybody was hype. A lot of people were hype on him, though. He signed a 4-year contract with the Browns. No, this was the Browns. Zane Gonzalez was It looks like he was with the Browns. That he signed a contract. He was with. I think he was drafted by the Browns in 2017. We have Zane Gonzalez next year through 2023. If we cut him, we save $1.8 million against the cap. If we keep him, he counts $2.4 million against the cap.
I mean, maybe this is an audition for Eddie Pinheiro.
Yeah, sure seems like it.
And same thing with Sam. If you play well down the stretch, especially if we have some big games and you come up in some big time moments, I mean, and if it saves some, how about this? I'm not so in love with the idea of Zane Gonzalez that I'm not willing to get cheaper if Eddie Pinheiro seems to be serviceable and would be able to do it for more money. Why not?
I mean, you lose 625. You're gonna basically if you cut Zane, whatever you sign the other kicker for, add $625,000 to his contract because that's the dead money for cutting Zane. So like, if we sign another kicker to a $2 million deal, it's really 2.6 because that money is going to be going against the cap next year. But
Jonell
Like,
says Tabor vouches for Eddie too.
yeah.
So yeah, he's got some supporters.
And you know what? Is Tabor? Look at this. Is you wouldn't Tabor and Campen have survived the purge,
Yeah.
the Matt Rule purge. It was almost like you wonder too, is this if like Wilkes I think McAdoo survived the purge just because they couldn't do without him right now. It's just you don't have anybody else that's like qualified to even do it.
I think he still could survive the purge.
Well, I mean, for the year.
Yeah,
You don't think
yeah,
they'll
right,
bring him
right.
back. It's like, but you can't cut it's like there's a reason. It doesn't matter how good or bad you think McAdoo is. You can't go without McAdoo right now. There's nobody
Yeah,
else
not
on
right
the
now.
staff that can do it, physically do it. The thing though is that look, Wilkes, McAdoo, Tabor, Campen were part of the Matt Rule bring in to continue to try to save my job. Matt Rule's fired, Wilkes is promoted, and there was a target on a couple of people's backs that said, you guys got to get the fuck out of here. And then we lost one game. We lost that Bengals game, and anybody else that like had Matt Rule's name in their phone, they're like, you're out of here next. And Wilkes walked around and said, show me your phone. Show me your phone. And then on top of that, did you see that what was it? Potluck, not potluck, pot roast. He used to be Terrence Knighton. He used to play for us. His nickname was Pot Roast. He was a former player with the Panthers he was on the coaching staff as an assistant. He joined Matt Rule in Nebraska. We lost Pot Roast, Terrence Knighton, I think his name, or something like that. And then we also lost the strength and conditioning coach, which this was interesting. Did you see the video floating around by Burns and Derek Brown? The send-off video?
No.
You didn't see that?
To the
strength and conditioning coach. And it was like a message from Brian Burns and Derek Brown, two Husker fans, hyping up this strength and conditioning coach and talking about how much they meant to him as an individual. And Brian Burns, I mean, it was like a crazy intimate. Like, I mean, these guys made this specifically for him.
Should I look it up? Try and pull it up?
You haven't seen it? Oh my gosh, it's like really a big deal. And I'm surprised people have not talked about it more. Let me see if I can Google it. Or the Huskers are.
I'm trying to find it on. Where did you see it?
I saw it on Twitter.
Is it recent?
Yeah, like within maybe like 5 days ago. Let's see. It was a message to the Husker fans. Burns talks to Huskers. Let's see if that comes up now. Hold on, we're gonna find this.
Yeah, I'm looking too.
It was Derek Brown and Brian Burns. Derek Brown and Brian Burns make video out.
Yeah, I'm still not seeing it.
1 week ago. Let's see if this is it.
Now, I will say, it does make sense because it does seem like Brian Burns, that used to be the critique on him, not having enough play strength at the point of attack. But he's really, really done a lot better these past, few years at really putting on muscle and getting stronger and locking out. He's, maybe that's the guy that he owes all of his games.
Maybe let's see, Brian Burns, Nebraska. Let's see if it shows up. Nope. And what it was like this, and it was a very intimate video. And what I mean by this is, he was saying something to the effect of like, you are getting a hell of a coach, a guy that I worked with daily for the last 3 years. And so these two guys joined Matt Rule's staff. I'm gonna have to find it for the Friday free for all. I'll find it sometime, but that's it.
Yeah, I
That's it.
can't find it either.
I saw it not too long ago, which is crazy. It was like really, it was weird. The reason that it stuck out so much to me is that it was such a personal video from him and Derek Brown, but there's like nobody's made that necessarily for Matt Rule.
Yeah, no,
You know,
dude,
it's like,
you're not gonna see one for Matt Rule, dude. Everybody pretty much
but they tried to. I don't
agrees.
know. I feel like some of the players have been congratulatory. I felt like not congratulatory, but I don't feel like the players have, which is surprising. I feel like the players have been nicer to Matt Rule than Matt Rule has been to the Panthers and Panther fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good look to throw your coaches under the bus. There's a lot of things that kind of stay in house unless you're an Urban Meyer type, kicking your your punters or whatever in the back of their leg. Hey, did you see this tweet by Darren, who has the better, or who's the greatest beard of December? Chris Darnold or Sam Darnold or Chris Kringle? And I gotta say Sam Darnold, man. Dude, that's a strong beard. He should be proud of himself, man. That's a hell of a beard right there. I'm not
Yeah,
even saying it to be funny.
and it
think
covers
that
up his
has
little
helped
mole
him.
thing. It
I didn't
covers
even
up
know
his
it had a mole.
guacamole thing.
I
Mole,
didn't
mole,
even know that.
mole.
I had forgotten all about it. But yeah, no, dude, he's balling right now. Fear the beard. I'm not even being funny when I do think that when I said that the beard has given him some confidence, given him some swag, some bravado. Fear the beard. Fear the beard. The beard. A man's beard, White Chocolate Espresso
Oh wait,
says.
I think I found it. Hold on.
Oh, you found it?
Yes, I did find it. All right, hold on.
Throw
I
it up.
got it.
Throw it up.
I got it.
Make sure you
This is
share the
from.
sound.
This
Stop
is.
sharing.
All right.
He definitely needs to keep the beard.
Panthers, I just want to tell Huskers Nation that y'all have an absolute beast of a man as a strength coach. Like, absolutely. Like, this is a guy that's skilled, driven, hardworking, reliable, loyal. Like, the list can go on and on, but he really demands the best out of you and pushes you towards your dreams and aspirations. And, I had a lot of one-on-one time with him. So, he just made me better in a lot of areas of my game. Not only my game, but as a person and also as a leader for my team and my defense. You feel me? So I was blessed and I'm grateful for the time I had with him. But now y'all got him. So y'all enjoy him. He's going to do wonderful things for y'all. And peace, love, and inspire.
Man, what's good, everybody? It's Derek Brown. Just wanted to speak on Corey Campbell. Corey's a consistent guy, man. You're going to get what you get every single day, man. High energy. He's going to bring it. He's going to make you work. Definitely appreciative of the time I had with him. Big shout out to Corey, man. Y'all getting a great guy, great coach, and, even better man off the field.
Yep.
Nice.
So
cool, man.
I hope we don't get demonetized from that beat.
We probably will, dude.
All right. That's all I got for you, man. Is I feel like we were done like an hour ago and we just wanted to hang out a little longer and talk.
Yeah, we just wanted to fucking hang out and talk Panther football.
This is the
C3 good little stream. Got a bunch of people in the chat room too, man. On the Wednesday night.
93 people on a Wednesday night. Don't forget, guys. Friday we've got the Friday free for all, which I hope is going to be civil this week after potentially the fallout from last night, and then
we will.
And then so the Friday free for all. What is for people that haven't heard of this, Cody? when you brought this to me, the idea of this a long time ago, I was like, I think it could work. Okay. It's turned into a monster in a good
Yeah,
way.
dude. It really has, man, dude, and it's a fun time all the way around. It's the Panther show for Panther fans by Panther fans. A lot of people. We spend a lot of time, a lot of hours on the C3 Panther podcast, just hanging out and talking, and that's a lot of people. Maybe they don't get the chance to hang out and talk about football with people in their everyday life, so you get to do it with us. And every Friday, you get to really come on the show and talk about this Panther football team. And we ask questions and go back and forth. And yeah, we try and keep it civil. Sometimes I got to mute G Baby and Panther Pickle and get a hold of the chat room. But it's all in good fun, man. So yeah, everybody join us every Friday at 7 p.m. Join the Friday free for all. And it's a good time, man. Just hang out and talk Panther football.
Saturday, we've got the Madden simulations, which have been super fun this year. And Sunday, the post game show, which you can also be a part of by calling in at 252-228-5098. I really want this post game show. Some people are asking me every now and then. I have a friend that'll say, "What do you want for the C3 pay? Like, where do you see it in 5 years or something?" I'm like, "Oh God, like, I don't know, more, bigger." I don't even really know, but I think this is I've been thinking about it a little bit when I'm trying to not avoid that kind of thought. I want the C3 Panthers podcast post-game show, the C3 Panthers post-game show to be the one that people turn on leaving the game.
That's it.
Like
Yeah.
more than the radio. Like I want us to beat radio one day and who listens instead of listening. And I love WFNZ, so I don't want to but like that's what I would say is like where is the real growth point? I
Yeah.
think I want the post game show to be the biggest. That's what I want.
And we're already there with some people.
Yeah.
I mean, we're a part of people's everyday Sunday. So we're definitely appreciative of that. Shout out to Dr. Rosen for the 4.99. It says much love, guys. Appreciate you, Dr. Rosen. And then Dan Floyd over there in Manchester says you hit the nail on the head, Cody. No NFL fans. So this is when, and I'm never disappointed. Cheers, boys. Yeah, man.
You
I think that
guys,
if we just continue to be good friends that love Panther football, that continue to do this because we love Panther football, I don't think we can go wrong.
I agree. That's why how we've gone right so far. Make sure to smash the thumbs up button, subscribe. Check us out on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify. I saw the statistics. iTunes listeners are like 85% of the people who download the podcast. So if you're an Android guy or a Spotify person, get on up there and hit download. Make us part of your life in the car. I know a lot of people listen to it. Take over those iPhone people. And thank you, iPhoners, for downloading the podcast and being part of it. Cody, that's all I got, man. We'll see you Friday. If probably not, I mean, maybe something breaking will happen. I'll be hanging out tomorrow with you.
Yeah, man. As always, you already know what time it is. Keep pounding.